The clatter of plates and the hum of conversation died instantly when Trevor, the sneering waiter, spat the words, "We don't serve people like you here." John Harris, a 62-year-old disabled veteran, sat frozen in his wheelchair. His service dog Max pressed protectively against his leg. The diner's patrons held their breath as Trevor leaned closer, doubling down, "No dogs, no exceptions." John's voice trembled, not from fear, but from the raw memory of battles fought and wounds that never fully healed. "I just want a meal," he pleaded, gripping Max's leash like a lifeline. In the shadowed corner of the diner, a man in a hooded jacket watched silently. His dark eyes narrowed as Trevor's cruelty sharpened. Unnoticed by the crowd, his calm demeanor hid a storm brewing beneath. A storm named Keanu Reeves. The waiter's smirk widened. "Take your mutt and get out." John's shoulders slumped, but before he could speak, a chair scraped loudly behind him. Every head turned as the stranger in the hoodie stood, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "You don't know who you're messing with." Trevor's refusal was far from over.
He leaned closer to John,
his voice dropping to a more threatening tone. "I said no dogs, no exceptions. Now move along before I call security." John's frustration bubbled over, his grip tightening on Max's leash. "This is disrespectful. I served my country, and I deserve to be treated with dignity." The other customers began to murmur, the once lively diner now filled with a tense silence. Some looked away, trying to ignore the unfolding scene, while others exchanged concerned glances. Trevor stood his ground, his smirk faltering only slightly. "Rules are rules. I'm just doing my job." Meanwhile, Keanu remained still, his eyes never leaving Trevor's face. His presence was calm, almost serene, contrasting sharply with the rising tension. He took a slow breath, assessing the situation with a keen eye. The diner's patrons could feel the undercurrent of impending change, the atmosphere thick with unspoken emotions. John's voice cracked as he tried to reason one last time. "I understand you have policies, but I'm a disabled veteran. Please just give me a meal." His plea was earnest, tinged with the weariness of someone who had seen too much. Trevor's frustration was evident now, his patience wearing thin. "I don't have to serve anyone. Take your business elsewhere," he snapped, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. At this moment, the door to the diner swung open with a jingle. But Trevor paid it no mind. The attention of the room was solely on the confrontation between waiter and veteran. Trevor's calm demeanor began to shift, a subtle yet noticeable change in his posture. He knew the right thing to do, and the moment to act was drawing near. The air was electric, every second stretching longer as the conflict reached its peak. John looked around, hoping for someone to intervene, but the support was minimal. It was as if the entire diner was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Keanu's resolve was unshaken, his mind racing through the possible outcomes, each more critical than the last. With the stakes so high, it was clear that this was no ordinary diner dispute. The confrontation was not just about a meal. It was about respect, dignity, and the scars carried by those who have served. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as emotions ran high. John's desperation was palpable, a silent cry for understanding in the midst of rejection. Trevor's frustration morphed into irritation, his body language becoming more defensive. "You think you're special? I serve everyone, no exceptions," he retorted, his voice rising slightly. The patrons exchanged uneasy glances, the situation spiraling out of control. Keanu's eyes met Trevor's, a silent challenge passing between them. The quiet observer was no longer just a bystander. He was about to become the catalyst for change. The tension was unbearable, the urgency in the air almost suffocating. Everyone in the diner knew that something extraordinary was about to happen, something that would leave a lasting impact on all involved. As Trevor's irritation reached its peak, leaning closer to John with a menacing glare, Keanu stood up abruptly. The room fell silent, all eyes shifting toward the now noticeable figure. Keanu's voice was measured, but carried an unmistakable authority that commanded attention. Trevor froze, his smug expression faltering as he met Keanu's piercing gaze. The once confident waiter now looked unsure, the weight of Keanu's presence pressing down on him. The entire diner was silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Keanu's stance was firm, his eyes locked on Trevor, leaving no room for argument. "You all just going to sit there and let this happen?" Keanu continued, his voice growing darker and more commanding. His words echoed through the diner, each syllable filled with a sense of urgency and justice. The patrons exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement, others unsure of how to react. A woman in her early 30s, dressed in a paramedic uniform, stood up hesitantly. "I was just about to say something," she began, her voice shaking but firm. She glanced nervously at Trevor, searching for support. But before she could continue, Keanu turned back to Trevor, his presence suffocating. "This man gave everything for people like you to enjoy life," Keanu said, his voice growing sharper. "He deserves respect, not this kind of treatment." The words hung in the air, heavy with truth and emotion. Trevor's lip curled in frustration, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty under Keanu's intense scrutiny. Keanu took a step closer, reducing the distance between them, his gaze unwavering. "If you think this is acceptable, maybe it's you who shouldn't be here." The room remained silent, the weight of Keanu's words sinking in. The patrons watched in awe, as Trevor struggled to maintain his composure, the defiance in his eyes now clouded with doubt. The paramedic woman looked down, her confidence wavering under Keanu's unwavering stance. Keanu's words had shifted the dynamic entirely, turning the focus back to the veteran and highlighting the injustice of the situation. The atmosphere was charged, the initial confrontation now infused with a deeper sense of purpose and righteousness. Trevor's facade began to crumble, his shoulders slumping slightly as the reality of his actions began to dawn on him. The diners, once passive observers, now felt a surge of solidarity, their silent support empowering Keanu's stand against the unwarranted discrimination. Keanu's presence was a beacon of hope in the tense environment, his actions reminding everyone of the importance of standing up for what's right. The conflict had evolved from a simple refusal of service to a powerful moment of confrontation and advocacy, driven by Keanu's unwavering sense of justice. Just as the tension seemed to reach its zenith, the diner's door swung open with a loud bang. Two police officers, clad in dark uniforms, rushed in, their expressions stern as they scanned the room. Detective Mark Donnelly, a grizzled man with a weathered face, immediately recognized John Harris. "John, what's going on here?" he demanded, his eyes flicking between the trembling waiter Keanu and the humiliated veteran. Before John could respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the far end of the diner. A masked figure burst in, brandishing a weapon that gleamed menacingly under the harsh diner lights. "Nobody move! I need help!" the man shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. Panic rippled through the patrons as chairs scraped against the floor, and screams filled the air. Keanu remained composed, his calm exterior now a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding. He quickly knelt beside John, whispering urgently, "Stay calm." John nodded, his eyes meeting Keanu's, finding solace in the unexpected hero's presence. The masked man's eyes darted around the room, his desperation palpable. "I just want to feed my kids. They're starving," he cried, his grip on the weapon wavering. Keanu stepped forward, his voice soothing yet firm. "Stay calm. Let us help you," he urged, his words cutting through the fear that had taken hold of the diner. Detective Donnelly moved swiftly, positioning himself between the masked man and the other patrons. "Put the weapon down, sir. We can help you," he called out, his tone authoritative yet compassionate. But the man's eyes were filled with anguish, his resolve crumbling under the weight of his desperation. Keanu continued to speak softly to the masked man. "I understand you're going through a lot, but this isn't the way." His words were a lifeline, reaching out to the broken man in front of him. John, drawing strength from Keanu's support, added, "I came back from war to a country that didn't care. Don't let this take you from your daughter." The emotional exchange between Keanu, John, and the masked man created a profound moment of empathy and understanding. The man's hands shook, his grip on the weapon loosening, as tears welled up in his eyes. "I lost my job, my house, my wife left me. My little girl looks at me like I'm a stranger," he sobbed, the facade of anger and desperation finally breaking down. Keanu placed a reassuring hand on the man's shoulder, his presence a calming force amidst the turmoil. "You're not alone. Whatever you're carrying, there's another way," he whispered, his words filled with genuine compassion. The masked man's knees buckled as he clutched his chest, the weight of his struggles too much to bear. Max, John's service dog, stepped forward, nuzzling the man's leg in a gesture of comfort. "I'm sorry," the man whispered, his voice barely audible as he collapsed onto his knees. Detective Donnelly moved in carefully, securing the weapon and ensuring the man was safe. Keanu remained by John's side, offering silent support as the situation was brought under control. The once chaotic diner now felt a sense of relief and understanding, the immediate threat neutralized by compassion and empathy. The patrons watched in awe as the masked man was led away, his breakdown a testament to the power of human connection and kindness. As the dust settled, Keanu turned back to John, his eyes reflecting a mixture of sorrow and admiration. "You've been through hell," he said quietly, acknowledging the veteran's resilience and strength. John nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe tonight I helped someone else climb out of it." The diner, once a place of tension and conflict, now resonated with a sense of unity and hope. The night had taken an unexpected turn, transforming a moment of confrontation into one of profound human connection and redemption. Keanu's intervention had not only defended a veteran, but had also provided solace to a struggling man in desperate need of help. With the immediate threat addressed, the atmosphere in the diner began to shift. The police officers carefully de-escalated the situation, ensuring the masked man was safely taken into custody. Detective Donnelly approached John and Keanu, offering a reassuring nod. "Good work here. We'll make sure he gets the help he needs," he assured, his tone reflecting both authority and compassion. Keanu turned his attention back to the veterans, offering a reassuring smile. "We're all in this together," he said softly, his words fostering a sense of community and support among the patrons. The waitress, who had been silently observing the entire ordeal, approached John hesitantly. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her hands trembling as she placed a steaming plate of food in front of him. "I didn't stop him. You didn't deserve that." John looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a mixture of gratitude and forgiveness. "You stopped him by being here now," he replied, his voice steady. Despite the tears threatening to spill, the waitress nodded, her own tears streaming down her cheeks as she realized the impact of her inaction. Keanu, witnessing the exchange, felt a surge of warmth. "Let me cover your meal," he offered to John, "and make sure everyone gets dessert," he added, with a kind smile. The patrons responded with murmurs of gratitude, their fear replaced by a newfound sense of camaraderie. Strangers exchanged smiles and nods, united by the shared experience of witnessing something truly profound. As Keanu prepared to leave, the diner's door opened once more. This time, a young woman stepped inside, her face pale and her eyes wide with emotion. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling as she clutched a small bag to her chest. John's breath caught in his throat as he recognized Ellie, his estranged daughter. Her presence brought a wave of emotions crashing over him: regret, relief, and overwhelming love. Ellie hesitated for a moment before rushing forward, dropping her bag and falling to her knees in front of John. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she sobbed, tears streaming down her face. "I left because I was angry."
"I thought you didn't care."
"But I was wrong. I was so wrong." Unable to speak, John reached out and pulled Ellie into his arms, holding her tightly as if afraid she might disappear again. The room, once filled with chaos and fear, now brimmed with the kind of emotion that left no eye dry. Keanu stood near the counter, quietly wiping tears from his face, his usual composure faltering as he witnessed the heartfelt reunion. "I thought I lost you," John whispered into Ellie's hair, his voice breaking with emotion. "I thought I'd lost you." Ellie lifted her head, her voice muffled against his chest. "Dad, I heard what happened here. I saw your name in a text thread, someone talking about a veteran at a diner. I had to see if it was you." Keanu stepped forward, his presence gentle yet commanding. "Sometimes the hardest nights bring us back to the people who matter most," he said softly, his voice filled with genuine warmth. Ellie looked up at Keanu with wide eyes, her voice almost incredulous. "Are you Keanu Reeves?"
Keanu chuckled, the tension finally breaking.
"I am, but tonight I'm just a guy who had the honor of witnessing something incredible." Ellie smiled through her tears, her eyes shining with hope. "Let's go home, Dad," she said, her voice trembling, but resolute. John nodded, his face radiant despite the tears streaking his cheeks. "I'd like that," he whispered, the weight of years lifting, as he felt his daughter's presence beside him. The crowd in the diner began to clap softly, their hearts collectively swelling at the sight of a family reunited against all odds. As John and Ellie left the diner together, Max trotting faithfully beside them, the world outside seemed a little brighter, a little kinder. Keanu watched them go, a small smile playing on his lips. He turned back to the waitress, nodding with appreciation. "Make sure everyone's meal is on me," he said simply. "This place feels like it could use a fresh start too." With that, Keanu stepped out into the crisp October night, feeling a warmth in his chest. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, light has a way of finding its way back in. The night had been a testament to the power of empathy, the strength of human connection, and the unexpected heroes that can emerge in everyday situations. As the night drew to a close, the events in the diner left a lasting impression on everyone involved. The once tense and hostile environment had transformed into a space of healing and reconciliation. John and Ellie's heartfelt reunion was a powerful reminder of the importance of family, forgiveness, and the enduring bonds that hold us together even in the face of adversity. Keanu Reeves stood quietly on the sidewalk, reflecting on the night's events. "Sometimes all it takes is one person to stand up for what's right," he thought, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The diner's patrons, now bonded by their shared experience, left with a renewed sense of community and understanding. The waitress, still processing the evening's events, felt a newfound resolve to do better, to be more present and supportive in the lives of others. The story of that night was not just about a confrontation. It was about the ripple effects of compassion and the profound impact one person can have on many lives. Keanu's intervention had not only defended a disabled veteran, but had also provided comfort to a struggling man and facilitated a long-awaited family reunion. It was a testament to the power of empathy and the human spirit's resilience. As the last of the diners left, the quiet night settled over the city, leaving behind memories of courage, kindness, and unexpected grace. The diner, now empty and serene, stood as a symbol of hope and renewal. The echoes of that night would carry on, inspiring others to act with compassion and stand up against injustice. If you found this story inspiring, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do in a situation like this? Share your ideas in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming and inspiring stories that remind us of the best in humanity. Remember, even in the darkest moments, there's always a spark of light ready to shine through. Let's continue to spread kindness, support one another, and believe in the power of human connection. Thank you for joining us for this incredible journey, and until next time, stay hopeful and stay connected.